Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jacob, and welcome back to Dress Rehearsal, the podcast where Broadway and fashion take center stage, and we dive deep on the roles that shape us on stage and off. On today's episode, we are welcoming our first West End superstar to the podcast, Bradley Jaden. Bradley will be making his New York City stage debut as Javert in Les Misérables, the Arena Concert Spectacular at Radio City from July 23rd to August 9th. He has played some of the most iconic roles in the musical theater canon, from Shrek to Fiyero, and all the roles he's played in Les Mis for over his 10-year stint in the show, where he has performed for over 1 million people in 22 different countries. Yes, can you imagine? In this episode, we talk about Bradley's inspirations in the theater, from the iconic West End producer Sir Cameron Mackintosh to Ramin Karimloo, Bernadette Peters, Lea Salonga, and so many more. Bradley has that rare combination of sincere grit and true heart. The guy just loves to perform. Please enjoy this episode of Dress Rehearsal with Bradley Jaden. And welcome Bradley Jaden to the podcast. Bradley, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We start every single episode with, when did you get bit by the theater bug?
Oh, wow. I started really, really late. I didn't really kind of start singing until I was about 18, but my sister was an opera singer and she was doing it from a very, very early age. So I was kind of bit in that way because I was just secondhand watching my sister kind of shine and go to all these recitals and competitions when I was younger. But I was very much into martial arts and I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was younger. So the world of theatre was definitely a late one in my life.
And I know early on, the iconic West End producer Cameron Mackintosh was a really early champion for you. And so I'm curious, like, what advice he had given you that you really took to heart.
Yeah, it is bizarre to even think, Sir Cameron is one of my really, really close friends, and we've known each other for 21 years now. And when I was 18, he put me at drama school and had this kind of belief or thought that I could bring something, and it was, you know, I don't think I appreciated it, and I can honestly put my hands up about that because I wasn't in the world of musical theatre, so I just knew of this man who was a producer of shows. But my sister was very aware, and she kind of was like, "This is, something very, very special." And obviously, I went to drama school without, any other training, so it was drama school was difficult for me, because I wasn't used to the intensity and being told how to do something and what to do, and that was just not how I like to perform. I just like to perform, I guess, from my heart. So it was a difficult time, drama school. And then, I met him at the open call of Miss Saigon, and then I think it was I think it was 5 years after I'd graduated. So it was a long, long time, and I was up for Chris in Miss Saigon again, which was the Eva Noblezada version, Alistair Brammer, the amazing one that came to Broadway. And it didn't go my way, but he obviously still felt that there was something there. And he put me in the ensemble of Les Misérables, which was on the 29th anniversary. And that was, again, it was probably the start of our relationship as friends. And yeah, and I owe him so much. It's kind of crazy, to call him my friend, but also to have this, this show is Les Misérables is one of the most iconic in the world, and to be a small cog in its history of, I was happy just to like sweep the back of the stage, be in the ensemble. So to now finish here, this part of my journey in Radio City on the 40th is bizarre. It's bizarre.
And also to have someone like Cameron, who's been involved in such iconic shows. You look at Phantom, you look at Les Mis, Miss Saigon, and you could think that they might be detached from the immediate company. And I heard when Eva was going across the pond to be in Miss Saigon, before they put her into the show, they put her in the ensemble of Les Mis for a minute just to be like, learn how to be in a company, learn how
That's true.
to watch what leaders are doing. And I think that
Hmm.
care of like developing talent is so rare. And the fact that he saw you and was like, I'm going to continue pouring into you is so
Yeah.
special.
It truly is exactly as you say. It's so special, and to now grow up through the ranks of Les Miserables, and go and do different shows, work with different companies. There's no one like Sir Cameron Mackintosh, and I think what I always try to not educate in any way, but just try to make people aware of, is that to have a producer of his age, of his that still has as much passion as he does. I think that it's very easy to. I think I can imagine it'd be very easy to have a show that's been running for 40 years and kind of just bring that money in, take it, and not have it. He is there at every single cast change. He's there at every single audition. He's there with new ideas. Everywhere we have been, just in this particular World Arena tour alone, I mean, there's been 25 different venues around the world, and he's been to, I would say, over half of them, making sure that the show is okay, making sure that the people are right. And obviously our relationship as friends has grown dramatically, but also just to see his excitement of new young talent, wanting to see people develop, it truly is inspiring, because it's just, we won't see the likes of, Sir Cameron Mackintosh and, people like Angela Weber again, that are holding these shows for 40 years. I do truly feel like, I grew up watching a VHS of Hey Mr. Producer. I don't know if you ever saw that. I used to watch that with my sister all the time before I even kind of really knew what it was. And now to be, doing certain celebrations and working alongside him, I kind of just think, whoa, I'm good. If I have to stop singing tomorrow, like I've been very, very lucky. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Totally. And I think the fact that you're taking stock of the legacy, and I want to dive into Les Mis because it's been such an important part of your journey. And now you're making your New York City stage debut with it at Radio City Music Hall. Very casual, very normal. And you were very young when you first went on as Javert. I think you were 29, maybe like the youngest to ever play the role. Can you tell us what that first time going on felt like?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been, as I say, I started on the 29th anniversary as ensemble, and I covered Jean Valjean, and then in the 30th I was Enjolras, and I actually left the show because I was having such a good time. There was just something in me that was like, you have to leave, because if you stay and become bitter, or you
Mm.
forget how incredible this show is, it will just ruin you. And Les Mis has always been a dream of mine. So I kind of just made this decision to leave. I went off and played Fiyero and Wicked, and got this call to come and audition for Jean Valjean and Javert. And I was like, oh, okay. I feel like and I was really, really honest. I even said to, Cameron, I was like, I'm really, really young. Like, and obviously there'd been, of course, huge talents like John Owen Jones, Ramin, that had played these roles way before they were 29. But there was just something in me that I just knew that I didn't have that gravitas, and I can hold my hands up and say that. Like I had the gravitas for Enjolras, but I didn't feel like I had the ideals and the ideas of Javert and Jean Valjean, just because I put them on such a pedestal as leading men. But I went auditioned for both those roles, and fortunately came out with the role of Javert, which kind of blew my mind. And I think with all these huge monster musicals, as I call them, like Wicked, like Les Misérables, like Phantom, they come with this innate pressure that is just, you can't put your finger on it, because no matter how hard you try and how much passion you have, you will always be someone's worst, and you'll always be someone's favorite, because you have the likes of Philip Quast, Colm Wilkinson, Patti LuPone, Samantha Barks. So you follow this legacy. But I think the fans sometimes need to understand that we also are fans as well. And we have learned, and we have grown through the ranks of watching these well-established, incredible performers. And all we have done is like be like a bit of a sponge and just kind of suck everything that's been incredible to watch or to participate with. And I think the only thing that I kind of really was confident in is the fact that I'd been the ensemble, I'd been Enjolras, I'd played Jean Valjean, so I knew what it was like to play opposite Javert, and I knew what it was like to see that story. Javert is quite a lonesome character, and very singular in throughout the show. And I remember the first few months, I was just trying to mimic and try and be Philip Quast or be Jeremy Seckham, who had been my Javert, who's still doing it now with me. I'd seen all these incredible actors portray it, and I just was so in awe of them. I wanted to be like them. And I just remember there being a moment like, you've just got to tell the story from your own heart. Otherwise, this is just going to go down bad. And, obviously it's been okay. It's
Yes.
been okay. Yeah, but it's been, yeah, I definitely was just like, I love this show more than anything in the world. I've read the book copious amounts of times, and that was the huge foundation for me with Les Mis. Just that book was just everything. It has so many details, and I was just then like, okay, I'm just going to go in my own direction, and my version of Javert is very different. I don't mind admitting that, but it was true to me, and I knew it was something that I could do at 150% because I knew that I could do it. And just like everything with these big ones, sometimes you're someone's favorite, sometimes you're not. But I love the show more than anything, and I think that's also why Cameron has like paired me with Killian, because we're just two boys that have kind of grown up through the ranks, and we love singing, and we're best mates, and we're just kind of like, what is our life? We get to sing the best musical, chasing each other, screaming at each other, and then we get a nice hug at the end.
Totally. And how special it is to now bring that around the world. And the fact that you've played so many different roles, I'm sure just like deepens your understanding of the show in a way that like is different than anyone else who's been in it because you've really moved through the company. And I think shows like Les Mis and Wicked do that very well, where it's like they know that it is a behemoth of a show. So if someone's going to
Yeah,
carry it, it's best carried by someone who understands how the whole puzzle comes together.
couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think that what's so special about Les Miserables is that the thing that Cameron and Claude Michel and Alain have always been really instilled everyone is no one is bigger than Les Miserables. And that's the honest truth. You could get the biggest star in the world, but actually no one cares. They just want to see the show Les Miserables. And that's why it has been so successful all over the world. I think it's played to something like 53 countries now. And it's just, it's universal in its language of trust, hope, love, drive, passion, and everyone can see something within themselves, within these characters. And yeah, I just feel just immensely proud of actually, Claude Michel and Cameron Mackintosh and Alain for creating something that has given so much inspiration to so many performers, and given someone like me this small opportunity to now come to New York, which is like, a dream come true, and not even just, a small part of New York, Radio City. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, you're going from 0 to 100 very quickly. It's
That's it.
quite
That's it.
a stage debut. And
Yeah.
since you have been in the show for so many different iterations, I'm curious, like, is there a new layer that you've uncovered recently in the character that you're like, oh, I can't wait for Radio City to see this nuanced part of Javert that they haven't seen before?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I, I know people always say, it does develop and it changes every day, but it really does. And there's such a difference, a small difference, but it's such a difference as an actor within the stage show, let's say at the Sondheim Theatre, to this arena world spectacular. Because not only do we have this humongous orchestra of 33 players behind us, but we are almost just staring down the barrel of the gun of the camera. And we've got these three humongous screens in 4K, so it's like we're doing a movie, but at the same time we're not. So there's moments that we've had to adapt to really, really tell the story. There's moments where we can actually showcase a bit more of a softer approach because it's all on camera. So sometimes, where it's a little bit more a bigger version because it is played in a playhouse, we're able to tell the truth a little bit more. But it's also been able to challenge us in ways that I don't think any of us have expected, because we've got in-ears. Again, we've got a humongous company. I think there's 65 of us. And, and it's not every day you get to play an audience of up to 7,000 per show or 5,000 per show. That's like doing a week's worth of people in one show. And, we've done that around the world. And this company have worked tirelessly for almost 2 years, doing the show in one country, then getting on a plane, flying to the next, and then the stage crew and everything. I don't know how they've managed to do it, but they have, and it's just been an absolute joy to be part of.
That is such an interesting point of like, there are so many screens at Radio City that I'm sure they're using to do close-ups since it's such a large house. And there's a difference between performing for the stage and performing for the screen. And what an interesting, like, you have to find that perfect medium of like, you want to react so that people in the balcony can see, but also the camera is going to be right there.
Exactly, yeah. It's been a real fine balancing act throughout this whole journey, because as well throughout our journey, the arenas have completely changed in their setup and their layout. So cameras, you can see them in the very far distance of the, let's say, the stalls or the orchestra, but it's the height of it. So even just like staring down the barrel of the gun, you might be here, but actually it's there in one venue and then up here. So it's had to, those small little nuances have had a huge impact. But our directing team and associates and residents that have been with us throughout the whole thing have just kept such a tight ship on this, and it's been amazing. And like I say, just to sit in awe and watch from the wings, just listening to this music every single night has been amazing.
Totally. And what a special way for someone like you who's been in the show for so many different times. Like now you have something new to play with. Oh, I gotta remember to do this and like keep it really, really fresh. And
Absolutely.
I know you mentioned before a fellow Les Mis alum, Ramin Karimloo, and I know he was kind of someone that you looked to when you were coming up in the business, and you later got to work alongside him. So I'm curious what
Mhm.
you would kind of tell young Bradley about getting to work with people you admire.
Yeah, I mean, Ramin was always one of those guys. I'm so fortunate now that I get to call him my friend and I can actually, give him a text and see how he's doing and stuff like that. But yeah, I remember again going back to when I was playing Ondra, and anyone that wanted to play Enjolras looked up to Ramin, and we had these, like, there were certain things in his costume that he wore that no one else did that we tried to mimic, and I even tried to mimic his sound. And when I was younger, and it was just very quickly I was just like, I'm never going to be Ramin, like never, like no one is. But then I was also thought no one's ever going to be Bradley, and it was kind of like this weird moment of like, oh, I can actually just sing how I want to sing, and it's working so far. So just keep doing it, and it was like the most empowering thing. And then obviously a few years ago, this audition came up about potentially auditioning to play Raoul in Phantom of the Opera, and it was opposite Ramin. And I remember going into the audition, I was just like, what do I need to do to get this? And the director was quite taken back, but I was just like, no, I need this. I need to stand in the wings and watch one of, my idols perform and learn. And it was absolutely phenomenal, night after night to watch him. And then even more fortunate, people like Earl Carpenter were also in the cast. So these legends that I've been only listening to, we're very, very lucky nowadays that pretty much any brand new show can just pop out a cast recording. It's very, very
Mhm.
easy now. Like, but in the olden days, let's say, I remember you'd queue up around this one shop in London called Dress Circle, and you'd hope and you'd wait for this CD to land, and then you'd go home and you'd listen to it from start to finish. And it was very much like you'd listen to people like Bernadette Peters and Lea Salonga, and then obviously I did Old Friends with them, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I'm still, I feel like we're in a world at the moment where it's uncool to say it's cool, or uncool
Mhm.
to say I love it. But I absolutely love theatre. It's the biggest escapism for me. It makes me so happy, and I love telling people when they're fantastic, because for me, I just think, it's nothing but inspiring when someone can just make you feel something with just a gift that they have. And anyone that kind of, I guess, looks up, or what you say, kind of looks out to people in that older generation, I think that they get just as much as enjoyment being told as you get from it. And I don't think that's in an arrogance way. I think it's just like it's they've had it. It's almost like a passed down thing of, I've listened to so many CDs and people I've admired and wanted to work with. And I hope that we inspire the next generation to continue loving Les Mis, or continue loving Wicked, or see something that we do in our acting choices that they think, oh, I could do that. And I just think that's what's so amazing about our world of acting, is that we get to see a plethora of different people's journeys and interpretations, and we get to take from that as you will. And there's always people always say there's a competition, but I think there's only a competition with yourself. And you know, as long as we're working hard and being nice, then hopefully we'll all be able to succeed a little bit.
I think that's right. I think when people join the business, sometimes it's like it feels embarrassing to love what you love out loud. And how special it would be to know that, like, someone in an audience that you once performed for was inspired by your performance and then went on to pursue this career at the highest level, like to know that tangible impact for these people, I'm sure means everything, because it's hard when you're just performing day after day to recognize like every show could be someone's first Broadway or West End show, and it could mean everything
Totally.
to them and like open up their world. Why not?
Absolutely. And people, it's a lot of money to come and see a theatre now. And you know,
Mm.
we yes, we get paid, and yes, it's our job. And but it's also like, you know, all of my best mates that, you know, I come from Brighton, down the south of England, and my best mates are mechanics and builders, plasterers, electricians. And you know, I know how hard it is for them to save up money to come to London to watch a show that you're in. You know, you're talking hundreds, and you know, people fly over from all different parts of the world to watch you perform. And it is inspiring that you can even save up and you want to come and see us. And you know, if you can reach out and just say it's that was fun, and or you know, I've been inspired or I've learned something, like I just think, wow, you know, it's to say that I get to sing and that's my job is kind of crazy, you know, like. And I think that's why I'm always kind of on this like this balancing act of kind of go, well, if someone told me I wasn't going to sing tomorrow, I'd be devastated. But I think, wow, I've had a great couple of years of just being able to sing, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? So, and then I've also got to travel the world, and you know, it's been just the most amazing journey. I feel, you know, privileged.
Totally. And I think you look at those leaders, you mentioned Bernadette Peters and Lea Salonga doing Old Friends together. You've led companies before, but to see two legends like that who just know how to take care of a company, what do you feel like you're going to take from Old Friends to the next show that you join?
I mean, I think it's just about being aware. Like, I think it's about being aware, really. I think, you know, I know that I'm a very, let's say, introverted person. And sometimes I don't like to jump into spaces and stuff, but I really care about the people that I do work with, like in terms of like, I want them all to be happy and I want them to be given 1,000,000%. And, you know, sometimes that isn't the truth. You know, sometimes it's hard when you're trying to give it and someone else isn't giving it, but that's life as well, you know. But I think as long as we can just be kind to each other and hopefully inspire each other. I think that's what I love. I think that's what been the saving grace for me in this with, and as I mentioned earlier, like my best mate Killian, to stand toe to toe with someone. And we've done like, I think someone worked it out with, I think I've performed something like 4,000 shows with Les Misérables. And to stand toe to toe with a man who has two kids, a wife, and he gives it 160% every single show. I've never seen him like flicker an eyelid or, you know, muck about or anything. I've learned so much, and from being with another leading guy of his caliber. Um, it's been truly amazing just to think that there's people even older, you know, older than me that still care as much as I do, and I love that. And all I hope that it does is inspire again the next generation, and I get to kind of go in a couple of years. Wow, I worked with them when they were ensemble, and then they've climbed the ranks, and now they're a star. Or I've heard through, you know, Cameron Mackintosh, oh, watch out for this person, they're going to be a star. And you see it, and it's like that's inspiring, you know, because it also makes me work harder because I want to still be working when they climb up the ranks, you know, or working opposite them where they've got this chance just to kind of showcase themselves and push me to a new, not comfort zone, out of my comfort zone. Yeah. So, you know, I love being pushed out of my comfort zone. And I think Les Miserables has got to a point in its own career where it's enabling people to do so. You know, we hear different people's interpretations or different understandings of it, and we're growing in confidence as actors to be able to take these huge roles and kind of, I wouldn't say make them our own. It's because the story is still being told, but just have this kind of like their own personality. And I think that's rare. I think it's exciting as well.
Totally. And I think the best art is art that's responding to the moment. And so whatever's happening out in the world changes how the show is interpreted every single time someone sees it. And so for you to kind of interact with that conversation too, I think is very interesting because Les Mis and Wicked, you can apply to so many different situations. And so it just makes the piece even more special.
Absolutely.
And not only is Les Mis your New York City stage debut, you also recently made your New York City theater kind of like workshop debut, I guess. You were working on the Jennifer Nettles new musical, Julia. And so I'm curious for
Yes.
you, this was your first job kind of workshopping in New York. Like, how does New York
Mm.
theater's process differ from building a show in London?
Oh, I mean, total dream to work with that cast for that small amount of time. It was so intense, and I was so nervous. I was so nervous just because the caliber of people were just out of this world, and some of them knew the show prior or knew little bits of it, and I kind of came in it as like, looking after that role just for like those 2 weeks, and it pushed me so far because it was such a huge amount of material to learn. And not always do workshops in the UK have, a big audience at the end of it. So I don't think I really clocked onto that until like the day before. They were like, okay, so there's going to be an audience in tomorrow for 2 shows. And I was like, oh, but
Right.
honestly, it was one of the greatest experiences for me. It truly was to hear new music and to be in the room when a new musical is being written is just like something I've never experienced before. I mean, I've been very lucky in the UK to be part of new musicals, and I still am so lucky to be part of it. But that it just never gets old when you feel like, oh, this is so good, and this could be something. And I've watched Jennifer Nettles and my friends in that production since it's been in previews, and I've just been like, I'm so desperate to come and see this. Like, I've already booked my tickets, and I cannot wait. I mean, I just see humongous things happening for that show. It was, and to be again a small little part in that huge show and someone's genius. Yeah, and if you haven't got a ticket to that, you need to like get your tickets for Les Mis, but then get your tickets for that as well.
Yes, I think it's very cool to see these music artists go to the theater medium because music is storytelling. And so to really expand upon that seems very cool. The Sarah Bareilles, the Ingrid Michaelsons, now the Jennifer Nettles of the world. Like, it's a very cool crew to be a witness to.
Absolutely, and she was just so kind and inspiring, and generous with everything. If you had a different interpretation, I think you had to almost bring that kind of confidence of like, I can't do this, but I can do this, and this might help the piece. And I think that's what's so amazing when you have a new musical, that you can kind of bring your own, I don't know, Bradley Jaden to that particular role for that moment, just to say, look, I'm just going to do this because it will give the show 150% for that. I don't know, that little preview that the audience will see, and it might not be right, but it will make sure that I'm comfortable, selling your product. That's what all these kind of workshops are. It's this huge thing, and America just works so fast at bringing brand new musicals in and trying out these things. And again, for me to land that workshop while I've been in New York has just been, yeah, it was a real pinch me moment. And as I say, just watching on Instagram and on social media of just how that show is just flying already, it doesn't surprise me because it was a joy to be part of it.
Definitely. And beyond the stage, you mentioned wanting to be a cartoon artist. So I'm curious, like having other mediums like art, how does that kind of fuel your creativity and ground your performing? Because it feels like it all plays into each other.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really, really important. And I think it was something that was really instilled in me from my family, from my sister, from my mum, and from, like I said, my best friends who aren't in the world of theatre, who, although they were the most supportive people in the world, they were also like, you need to have backups. You need to have backups. And I think that for the first part of my career, I was just kind of doing any other job that I possibly could, working on a construction site, working in shops, doing anything that I possibly could just to make money when I wasn't. But then as I got older, it was more of like, well, if I'm not doing acting or not doing singing, I still want to be in love with what I do from a 9 to 5, regardless of what that was. So there was definitely moments like, I made my own gin and I started selling my own gin. I have a huge passion for horology and watches. So I started, doing things with that. I'm also a personal trainer and a nutritional advisor. And I think there's just so many things that I think the work, like, as I've got older, education has been something that's really been important to me, and I love learning and learning new skills and learning new crafts. And I think that's also the thing about being an actor. We love learning new scripts, learning new songs, learning new skills that can develop us as performers. And so I've just tried to do a lot of that in my own personal time to, just to make sure that even if I'm not doing the thing that I love more than anything in the world, I'm still happy in life. Do you know what I mean? And that's been difficult as well, especially kind of like, moving from the UK to the States and then being like, oh, trying to find my feet and do the things that I love, but also trying to like knock down all the doors to be like, hey, can I audition and sing for you?
So I think that's really interesting because I feel like casting oftentimes likes to pigeonhole people, but you've transformed into so many characters. Fiyero, Shrek, Javert, like you don't think of those as all being the same. How have you navigated casting maybe only seeing you one way, but you know there's so many sides of Bradley that you want to share?
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good question. Really good. I think it's probably been more difficult in the UK because obviously that's been my huge chunk of my performing career. And so people do absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, they pigeonhole you. And I think that will happen. And even in the short amount of time being in the States, I've seen that. You can kind of go, oh, okay, this what's been the most amazing for me is going to America and having these opportunities that I wouldn't get in the UK because people have just seen me as Javert. And there's an easy way because you can look at Javert and think, oh, that man should be 53. But I was like, hey, I'm 29. I've still got other things to do. And again, I think all I've tried to do now, especially in the last I'd say in the last 5 or 6 years, and that is really late, I think, but it's been the honest truth. I think I've just kind of gone, I love singing more than anyone I know. I love creating art more than anyone I know. And I work so hard. And I think when I get those opportunities, I just grab them. And I just kind of like, I'm happy to knock on a door and say, I want to sing because I do. And I want it. I want this job more than anything. And I think definitely the passion has kind of exceeded any doubt or anything like that. Because I think, oh, if it doesn't happen, that's okay. That's fine. But I've really gone in and given it I don't know, the biggest swing that I possibly can. And there's always going to be failure. And I think you have to fail to succeed, especially in this business. But I also think, you know, it's important to fail because it shows you how much you want it. And it shows you different ways of kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say changing yourself, but I'm, a lot of people don't know, but when I was in Shrek, I wasn't really, let's say, succeeding, or maybe not succeeding in the way that I wish I did. And then, I tell this story, but a famous composer told me I'd be more successful if I lost weight. And nowadays, that would be frowned upon. But at the time, it wasn't. It was just conversation. And I never would look at that in a negative way. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did. And I lost, it was like 11 stone. So
Wow.
it was a lot of weight. So I went from, let's say, being a character actor, I guess, to being a bit more of a featured ensemble leading man kind of role. And that's everything that I wanted to do. I grew my hair. I, kind of completely changed my image. And that's hard day to day because, I'm very open about that. It's hard to kind of think, oh, would I be this if I hadn't been told to do it? I don't know. But would I have been this, let's say, successful? I don't know what success is, but would I have worked this amount of this amount of time if I hadn't have done that? I don't know, and it's not a question I kind of worry about. But we do have to. I use my own self and kind of go. I'm happy to develop and change and kind of showcase myself in different ways for different roles. I definitely do that old school thing of like I wear a certain outfit to auditions if it's going to kind of sway them in a certain way to kind of go, oh, we can kind of see that, or at least get me to another round at least so I can kind of try with material. But I definitely do that. I don't mind admitting to stuff like that because it's also a great way for me to get more into the zone and more into a character and more into not being Bradley. So I'm happy to be like, hey, what's going on? Nice to meet you. I'm Brad, and this, but then I can just kind of disappear for a few minutes just for this audition. And yeah, I think my approach is absolutely, probably people are just laughing at that already, but that's fine. It's just that's the only way I know how. It's just kind of like escapism for a few minutes.
Something I really value in what you were saying is like being very honest and vulnerable about the things that go through your head as a performer of like, if I was one way, this wouldn't have happened. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the fact that you have so many different passions, this is going to sound very corporate finance of like diversifying your portfolio, but like your self-worth doesn't have to just come from performing because you're good at art, you can talk about watches. Like there are so many other things in your life that fuel you that like it doesn't have to be the validation from a casting director to say that you should be able to sing, because there are other things that you can do creatively that are valuable.
Yeah, and I definitely won't say that there's not a validation in wanting to be enjoyed, because there absolutely is, and I'd be lying as an actor if I said it's not nice to be known as, doing well or succeeding. But I think if I'm honest, it's my core friends and family that have just enabled me to, in really, really tough times in my life, pull me up and kind of put me back out there, or put me into a space that I'm uncomfortable with, and also through my own personal experience of let's say darker times, like that escapism has just been like a real release for me, and rather than being scared of failure, or scared of standing in front of 12 people, it's just kind of been like, I love to sing, and this is what I can do, and I hope that you enjoy it, and if you don't, that's okay. But again, yeah, I actually get more validation from my friends and family just being like, we're happy that you're happy. And I think that is exactly it. And then I think I cherish these moments even more, so that I kind of just think, wow, I'm getting paid just to have a sing, and that is the best feeling in the world,
Totally. And I think having that core foundation makes you a better performer, because you're interested in other people. So you kind of understand a character different, because you're like, oh, I have this really, really close friend and they've been through something, and I want to kind of explore that and understand them. And I think when you're investing in other people, it just makes you more well-rounded too.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
And I know you mentioned that you said that sometimes in auditions you'll like dress for the role. Is that like your philosophy? Like, do you lean in? Like, what is happening there?
I'm not. I'm not saying I go to like uh, a costume shop.
Okay. You
I'm
like
not saying
come
I go
in
to a
in
costume
full
shop,
Javert.
but yeah, like I didn't turn up to Shrek in a fat suit or anything like that. But
I mean, the
it's
Fiyero white
yeah.
pants, you could wear them every
I think
day.
it's definitely no. I think there's yeah. I think like for Andrea, I definitely wore like an open white shirt and rolled up the shirts and kind of gave. This is this. I remember when I went up for Rent and I wore, the leather jacket with, kind of, I mean, I wear rings all the time anyway, but, it's that kind of bit of jewelry and that kind of stuff. I remember, this is a true story. I remember when I was auditioning for Javert, and I knew that I was like, and it was at the time, I'm going to say this, where there were skinny jeans, stuff like
Okay.
that. And obviously, like, that was fine. But I remember the associate came up to me and was like, on my final, and he was like, "What are you wearing?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought this was kind of mature. Like, I thought this was like, yeah." They were like, "You need to go to the shop now, because Cameron Mackintosh is turning up in an hour." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay. So what do I do?" And I remember running to Gap, which to me at 29 years old, I was like, this is old people clothing at that time. This was 10 years ago. And I was thinking, and I was just walking around, and I said to the man working there, I was like, have you got some like old men trousers? And I took these trousers that didn't even fit me. They were so big, but I just pulled a belt in, and I got there, and the associate was like, what have you done? Where have your clothes gone? I was like, you just told me to go to and buy this. And so I had to go on for this audition with basically, one of those kind of cartoon sketches where you're wearing your dad's blazer and it's just like
Yes.
so oversized. But I just had to do this audition, and I was thinking, what is happening? Like, but it was because I was so panicked about trying to almost just like, I don't know, tease Cameron Mackintosh into understanding that I could be Javert in all in black, that I then wore, these baggy, terrible clothes. But yes, I go into, if it's an audition and it's like a certain role, I definitely try to think, oh, how would this person, what kind of shoes? I remember, for example, when I auditioned for Bill Sykes, that's just done in Oliver recently, and I was doing Old Friends at the time, and the whole cast, Bernadette Peters, Les Salonga, they were all laughing at me because I think it was like 7 auditions for Bill Sykes, and I spent something like £25 per audition on tattoos. And so I'd cover my neck and my arms in tattoos, and I would wear this big, like, heavy jacket, and I'd go in and do, play Bill Sykes or audition for Bill Sykes. And then I would come off for Old Friends, and I'd have to scrub off all these temporary tattoos. And they were like, no one does that. And I was like, yeah, I know, but like, I needed to like felt like I was creating something. I know people are going to be like laughing at this, but that's the truth. I was just like, I needed to find my own kind of version that made me feel like I was enjoying the moment or the process, and hopefully, I don't know, inspire. I'm talking about trying to inspire Matthew Bourne here, but it was funny.
I'm loving the visual of you and old friends, like with a jacket on and looking over and you're like at your watch, like, oh my God, I forgot one of the tattoos. Like I have one coming out of my jacket sleeve.
Yeah. Honestly, I covered my whole neck was tattoos, and I had like one down the side. I don't know what I was thinking. I just thought, I'm going to create something very different. It didn't work, obviously. I didn't get the role. It was fun.
You know what? Commitment is commitment.
That's it. Go hard or go home.
I also think you can tell so much about people from their jewelry. Do any of your rings have like a cool story behind them or like found you in a crazy way?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm actually not wearing one of my rings, but actually a fun fact. So yeah, I've got tattoos. All my tattoos mean something to me. And I remember when I first started getting tattoos, and Cameron was like, "Don't get tattoos," and then obviously I went and just did all the fingers instead. But usually, all this is a good one because it kind of showcases, But again, like all the tattoos mean something. Like this is my niece's name, and my nephew's called River and Finley, but it's the water symbol. But I have a ring that I've worn for the last, I don't know, 5 years as Javert. But obviously this is kind of like bowing out of Javert at this time. Do you know what I mean? After Radio City. So I actually got which no one actually seen, but it's kind of got the fleur de lis, which I wear on the collar on there. But usually I wear a ring basically covering it. So that's a new one. So that's quite cool.
So cool. And a cool part of Les Mis is you've gotten to go all over the world, Dublin, London, New York now. Like, do you feel like you get style inspiration from all these new places that you're visiting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and one of my favorite places in the world is Japan, and we were there for a bit, and I've been lucky enough to perform over there over 10 times now, and it's still my favorite place. But yeah, absolutely style, and I think what we've all really, really attempted to do as a company is wherever we've been around the world, Australia, Taipei, Japan, is really like taking their culture, taking the sightseeing and taking everything. And I know that the cast up, every day they're on the WhatsApp group throwing up new things about what we need to see in New York and things that they need to achieve and see. And obviously we haven't got a lot of time, but I think everyone is so excited. I think they're worried about the heat, but we've been quite lucky in the UK to experience quite a lot of heat right about now. So I think we should be fine.
Well, you'll be in for something today. I think it's 103 degrees, so
No. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot.
that'll be humbling. But I'm also curious, your characters all have very different style. Is there one of them that you'd like to trade closets with? Or you're like, no, Fiyero's pants are not for me?
Fiyero's pants are absolutely not for me. That was the worst. Whoever enjoys playing Fiyero in that costume, I don't know how, because it was a nightmare. That particular role for me was tough. Everything was so tight, and it was not forgiving. God, I did love being an old friends because you just got to wear a suit, and I love wearing a suit. I think there's something so amazing when we don't see it often enough. People wearing suits and dressing up, and even in the theatre, I still feel like my mum's coming over to Radio City and she's showing all these dresses, and I was like, yeah, theatre's not like that anymore. We don't really dress up and put on the posh clubber anymore. But I did love being an old friend and just wearing a suit. I loved it. And obviously, go after Les Mis, I go into Chicago and playing Billy Flynn, and that putting on that suit for the first time was really, really nice. So yeah, I do love. I think that's my favorite out of all of the other ones.
There is a swagger to Billy Flynn that's probably so fun to tap into because you're just like this shyster, like slick guy, and
Yeah.
that's just a cool thing to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I auditioned for that on Broadway, and it was just kind of like one of my first auditions in New York, and I was just like, I remember going into the panel and just be like, this is like, whatever happens, this is so fun because I'm, a lad from Brighton and I'm auditioning in New York, and they kind of were really taken back, and I was like, no, this is dream-worthy kind of things of being able to say, even if I don't ever work in New York, I've at least auditioned in another country. And it was a real moment that I cherish a lot. So to be able to go and play it for the 30th anniversary in Japan is kind of mind blowing.
Something very cool too about the Ambassador Theater for Chicago and Broadway is when you're walking in the stage door, they have a list of all the people that have played Billy Flynn and their names there. And same with like
Wow.
Velma, Roxy. And just to see like all of the stars that have
History.
put their stamp on it is just like a cool fellowship.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I love stuff like that where there's the history and there's a story. I loved it when we obviously when Les Misérables was first and it was at the Queen's after it moved from the Barbican. The back of the stage, but it was the Revolve version, and we used to kind of have this almost like a set wall that just kind of was just buildings at the back. But everyone who had ever been in the show had done their signature. So there was like Dame Judi Dench, people that you just like aspired to be, and you'd kind of like before you went on, you were just trying to find, even like people like Tam Mutu, who's in Chicago now, or these amazing people that you again aspired to be like, or hoped that you might meet in your career. They were all over the wall, and I remember someone came in before the Revolve version was closed, and they took pictures of every single piece to make sure that it was all documented, just for like the history and for the archives. It was yeah, with those moments for me are just like, and I think there's still that tradition of people when they're on tour or people when they're in theaters writing under the desk and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And I love that because I just think, you know, who knows who you might be like, oh, I was wearing their costume or I was sitting in the same spot as them, and that's so exciting for me. I'm such a kid when it comes to stuff like that.
Me too. I love that like people will sign underneath their desk in their dressing room. And it reminds me of like camp growing up where you'd like sign your little cabin. And I forget
Yeah,
who was saying that they checked under theirs and it was like Bette Midler. And they were like, it was probably one of her three dressing rooms, but
yeah,
to be in that air.
exactly. It's just kind of like it just inspires you regardless, and then you tour venues or something, and then you kind of find your own name on something. And you think I don't even remember touring in this venue, but there I am, and I think it's amazing. I love it.
That's so funny. It is true. I'm sure on tour some places blend together and you're like, nobody told me I was ever in this part of the world, but like, love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this has been such a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Bradley. And be sure to
No,
catch
thank you.
him at Radio City in the Les Miserables Arena Tour, July 23rd through August 9th in the hot New York City heat. You will want to be there.
Please buy a ticket because you will not be disappointed. The company is just incredible, and thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute joy.
And that's our show. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to Dress Rehearsal. If you love theater and fashion as much as we do, invite another diva to join the community. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all the places. See you next time.